May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be always found acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. Good morning. Good morning. After Christmas had ended, I was afraid that there wouldn't be anything to do. After all of the presents had been opened on Christmas morning, and after our little granddaughter, 5 years old, went back home 5 days later, I was afraid there wouldn't be anything to do. And even after all of the Christmas tree and the decorations in our house were put away, I was afraid that there wouldn't be anything to do in the cold, bleak month of January. And I needed no more than to get into my car and drive to church to be shown that the opposite was true. Yesterday alone, we saw people scurrying about after a very, very wonderful week of hosting homeless women here at the church, cleaning up and straightening up and putting things back to the way they were before the women from Caritas were here. And I thought about how many of you, how many of you gave of yourselves generously, of your time and of your talent and of your money, to be able to provide a place that was in keeping with the gospel mandate of sheltering the homeless and of feeding the hungry. It took all of our attention as a congregation in order to do that. And it took all of our attention and money and time yesterday to make sure that the building was ready for not only today, but for yesterday as well, because we had a group of people who formed the board of directors for the Covington Home for Boys, who met at their annual meeting in the Commons area. It was packed with people who were very, very grateful for our willingness to let us be the meeting space for them. So the Christian education classrooms were being restored after having sheltered homeless women, 35 in number. The kitchen area was being cleaned up by many of you after having fed numerous meals to those people. And the Commons area was also being occupied in the morning by a group of approximately 20 people who were trying to minister to young boys who, in years past, we would have said were in trouble. And not only was that part of the facility being used, but here in the church, Bill Perkey, Lenny Anderson, and Greg Moquin were hard at work trying to tweak a sound system so that they would be ready for not only this morning, but also for a massive funeral service, which will be held here in this very spot at 4 o'clock this afternoon. All week long, the staff has been busy getting ready for the funeral of the Reverend Bob Kerner. And some of you may have known Bob Kerner, and some of you may have come into St. Matthias and not gotten a chance to know Bob very well. But let me tell you a little bit about Bob. You're all invited to his funeral service at 4 o'clock this afternoon, but if you plan to come, by all means, be here no later than 3:30, because this place is going to be mobbed with people. He was a greatly beloved priest, a former Roman Catholic priest who met his wife Sandy while he was still a Catholic priest up in Erie, Pennsylvania, fell in love, left the Catholic priesthood in order to study to become a devout Episcopal priest, and brought along not only his wife Sandy as his life mate, but also led Sandy to eventually study for ordination herself. And that's our connection here at St. Matthias to the Kerners. Our connection primarily is with Sandy, who served part of her internship while she was studying to be ordained right here at St. Matthias. And now she is an ordained priest serving as the new rector of St. Luke's out on 711 in Powhatan, doing a fabulous job, but also having had to minister to her husband, Bob, who had liver ailment. He needed a new liver. And although he was over the age where liver donors are put on, quote, the official list, he was given permission by the medical authorities at MCV to solicit donors as volunteers. And over the past 18 months or so, 7 people came forward as willing to donate a portion of their own livers in order that Bob could be restored to health. And as you may know, that is a very difficult thing to find a true match. It's one thing to find donors. It's another thing to find matches. And no match was found. And so about 3 or 4 weeks ago, the medical authorities at MCV told both Bob and Sandy that he was no longer eligible to receive a liver, that his disease had spread to the point where it was terminal. And so Bob was moved from MCV to the Laurels out here in Bon Air, where he stayed until Sunday afternoon, and he had a bad fall in the bathroom of the room where he was staying at the Laurels. And so they rushed him Sunday night to Johnston Willis Hospital. He stayed in a coma pretty much until he died. Now, all of this is to say that we have some connection with Bob Kerner through his wife Sandy. But for those of you that are involved in the Curcio movement in the Diocese of Southern Virginia, you probably also had a more direct contact with Bob, because both Bob and Sandy were closely involved not only with Curcio, but with Kairos, the prison ministry. And many of you came into contact with Father Bob, as he liked to be called, and know of his infectious Irish humor. He was a good friend, a faithful and devout priest, and definitely the kind of person that would attract people to Christ. A friend of ours, Bob Hartwell, whom some of you know, a retired Episcopal priest, said that when Bob Kerner died, he probably went before the gates of heaven and appeared to St. Peter and asked St. Peter if he had made his Curcio. He was that kind of a guy. And we will honor him this afternoon at 4 with, I'm anticipating 35 to 40 clergy vested. So many so that we'll hope that they are all contained in the chancel area. The overflow will be stressful on this physical planet. We will have people seated, no doubt, in the Commons area. And Greg Moquin and Lenny Anderson and Bill Perkey are trying their best to have an adequate sound system and a video system for the people who attend the service. Upcoming in the month of January, we will be having later on this month, on Saturday night, January 28th, Yet another benefits African soiree. Someone told me this marks the 6th year that we've had an African soiree to raise funds to help rebuild a village in Sierra Leone. Mambo is the name of the village that our own Amy Burnett is from, and was destroyed in a ruthless civil war. Destroyed utterly. Now it has 3 areas where people can get sanitary drinking water. It now has a school of over 200 children, some of whom are now old enough to go off to college, to university. It's a miracle that in such a short period of time, Amy and the Lasana Project have gotten off the ground and are flourishing. And we're preparing by selling tickets after the service today. And then in early February, we'll also be having yet another occasion where J2A group, who is going on pilgrimage, will be sponsoring a festive occasion just before Lent starts on February the 11th. And they'll be selling tickets for a silent auction. A great time of celebration and joy. Now, the reason I mention all of these things is not just simply to get you to buy tickets or to attend a funeral service. It's much, much more than that. It's more than fundraising for either Amy's cause or the J2A cause. It's much more. And what's at stake, you have to understand, is that we're following something that is contained in this morning's gospel story. When Jesus was early on in his ministry, he was just like a nobody, walking around from village to village, and finally he went to a region called Galilee with one of his followers who saw something special in Jesus. Saw this sense that this was none like the other rabbis of his day. And then Philip was converted to following Jesus, and he went back to his hometown and amongst his friends, and he talked to a man named Nathanael, who also is known, I think, as Bartholomew. He said, "You've got to come and see this man Jesus from Nazareth." And Nathanael said, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said, "Come and see." And we've been coming and seeing ever since. It's why we are here today, miraculously, over 2,000 years later. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk that because we came and we saw, we gave of ourselves for the Caritas program generously from the Spirit. And we got more in return than we dare imagine we would. Who would have thunk that spending the night and being bleary-eyed in the morning would go down as the greatest thing that we did last week? Or making meals for 35 women, slaving really in a hot kitchen in our homes most of the time, spending a little bit of our hard-earned money. Who would have thunk that we would have thought, that is the best? And it is. Who would have thought that all of the work that went into planning for Bob Kerner's funeral will result, I am sure, in a celebration in just a few short hours that will be like a foretaste of entering into the kingdom of God, where we will find clergy and laity alike living in a period of unconditional love for Bob and for one another. Who would have thought it when those simple words, "come and see," were expressed? Because the object of life is to be transformed. And it's in giving to the Caritas program. It's in spending your time, your talent, preparing for a worship service, that we can be transformed. That's the whole purpose of your being here at this every week, Sunday in and Sunday out service, to somehow get in touch with that which is noble, and to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Where else can we do that? I'm a football fan like just about all of the rest of you. But as much as I watch football, I'm not transformed by it. I can only be transformed when I do something which challenges me, and it stretches me, it extends me, and makes me love. Love God, love you, and in the process, love myself just a little bit more deeply. That is living in the mystery of the secret. And we are participating in it as I speak. Amen. Now let us stand and say aloud.